there are four key vaccines. We have the Pfizer vaccine, we have Moderna, we have Johnson and Johnson Janssen vaccine, and then the AstraZeneca vaccine.
In Canada, we have all four of those vaccines you mentioned authorized. Pfizer for anyone 12 and up, and then the other three, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and the AstraZeneca for 18 and up. But in the US, the three main vaccines being used are Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J. All of those vaccines have gone through rigorous safety, efficacy trials to make sure that they're of high quality, and that's why they were given authorization.
I think we'd all like to know and understand a little bit more about them and the actual differences.
There are two main groups of vaccines. There's the adenovirus vector vaccines, and that's Janssen, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca. And then the other group are the mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna. So you can kind of think of two broad categories.
This can be quite confusing for people, and especially now we're starting to use different vaccines for the first jab to the second jab. So I think we'd like to perhaps understand a little bit more about that.
They all end up doing the same thing. A vaccine is training your body, training your immune system how to recognize and then fight the virus causing COVID-19. All of them end up doing that same thing in the body. It's basically like a set of instructions that you would write down on a piece of paper, and it's a temporary set of instructions. You're not writing it down in a formal protocol book anywhere. You're writing it down on a piece of paper. It's getting read by your body, and then it's actually getting degraded within a day or two. The instructions these vaccines give our bodies are very short-lived in our bodies, but the immunity that they help our bodies to build is what's long-lasting. The main differences between them, though, is how they deliver that set of instructions. J&J and AstraZeneca, they use a modified version of another type of virus called adenovirus. It's been changed so that it's not harmful to us. And it just is a way of getting the payload, getting those instructions into our cells. It's basically like a Trojan horse. It's the carrier to get those instructions into our cells. It uses an adenovirus carrier. Whereas Pfizer and Moderna, they give the instructions as a blueprint called mRNA that our cells are really good at reading. And they actually deliver that not in a virus like J&J and AstraZeneca. Pfizer and Moderna give it in like this fat bubble, basically. And since our cells are covered in fat, you may know like dissolves like, it's easy for them to get those instructions into our cells via these fat bubbles, where it can then be read by our cells, teach us how to make the spike protein, and then teach us how to fight it. And then that all gets degraded very shortly afterwards, but the immune memory that you build because of it is very long lasting.
Is there any one vaccine that's better than the other? Lots of people are trying to choose, which one they have. So, how do we make those assessments, or is there any? Is there need to make an assessment?
Best in a crisis, in a pandemic, is interesting, because really the best one is whichever. If you're drowning, right, you're not going to ask which life vest should you throw to me. Whichever one keeps me afloat is the one that's great. And so same thing when it comes to the vaccines. They all four that we've mentioned are equally effective at preventing hospitalization and death from COVID-19. When we look at the most severe outcomes, they're all equally effective. And so any of them are equally great at getting us out of the crisis.
Certainly one of the things that people talk about a lot with vaccines is the side effects and what happens to people when they've had a jab, and perhaps that sometimes it can be a little bit off-putting.
One thing you may hear people discuss is after they've gotten their first or second dose, they may have felt kind of hungover the next day. That's the way that I like to think about it. You feel tired, your arm may be sore, you may even have fever or chills. All of that is completely normal and not something to be concerned about. It typically clears after a day or two on its own. And you can always take something like acetaminophen or ibuprofen if you're really uncomfortable with those symptoms. It's basically equivalent to when you go to the gym and you work out your muscles. And if you haven't worked those muscles in a while, they're really sore the next day and then it clears. It's an expected outcome of giving your immune system a workout. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine have been associated with a really rare but serious side effect or adverse event of these atypical blood clots with low platelets. And so people should be aware of that rare but serious risk with those adenovirus vaccines, the Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca, which have not been seen following Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. There is always a potential with any medication for more serious side effects to happen. With vaccines, they're very rigorously monitored and studied for safety. We've now given millions, actually more than 2.5 billion worldwide. So we have a pretty good sense of just how safe these vaccines are. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Science Sam, and this is just one of the videos that I've made in collaboration with Graham Construction, giving you credible information about COVID-19 and the vaccines. We have a whole series of videos, so make sure you check out the other ones as well. And as always, give it a thumbs up and be sure to share it with any friends, family, or colleagues who may have similar questions.